Primary election is on May 12th. Early voting actually will begin next week, less than a week from now, April 29th. That's Wednesday when early voting starts ahead of the May 12th primary election. Republicans will have multiple choices for U.S. Senate nominees this year. Of course, Senator Seymour Capito running for re-election, but she is being challenged by a handful of candidates, including our next guest. Alex Gaaserud is a Republican running for U.S. Senate, describes himself as a young conservative challenger focused on generational change. Alex, good morning. Thanks for joining us in studio today.
Good morning, Dave. Thanks for having me here in studio.
Why is this the right race for you right now?
Sure. Great question. I have a skill set and ability to fight for West Virginians like they've never been fought for before. I believe that we need generational change in West Virginia and in Washington, D.C. in general. I got a degree in political science. I was on my debate team. I went around and traveled different parts of the country and debated public policy. I'm well-versed in policy and politics, and I think West Virginia needs a new image, and we need to send somebody that's a real conservative, and we need to send the next generation to solve the complex problems that we face in the 21st century and inspire our state, especially young people right now that are counting down the minutes till they can escape this state to never return.
Debt, it's at $39 trillion and growing every second. Talk to us, give us some tangible steps about what you want to do with the country's debt, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. So unfortunately, with the way they calculate the accounting there in Washington, D.C., in unfunded liabilities, our debt's actually closer to $100 trillion. But the $39 trillion debt is here today because of the way that they do business in Washington, D.C. So when I get to Washington, D.C., I want to return back to regular order and let these folks know that we can no longer fund the government the way that we have been funding it through reckless and wasteful omnibus packages. We need to pass 12 single subject appropriation bills, which will allow me to stand up on the Senate floor and say, no, we're not going to send $100 million to Egypt for universities. We're not going to send $50 million to Venezuela for democracy promoting activities, and fund the government the way the government was intended to be funded up until the mid-late 1990s, until we started the omnibus and the continuing resolution packages. So the way that they're doing business is what's ballooning the debt. And we also need to shrink government. You know, right now, $7 trillion is spent annually in this country by the federal government. We're only collecting $5 trillion in taxes.
What would you cut?
Well, we're going to have to reform entitlements in some ways. But we also need to cut foreign aid. We need to cut the reckless spending that we see in different parts of the country. But that would be a good place to start, with foreign aid specifically, and then not allowing the Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security to continue to get out of control. So we're going to have to amend these New Deal and Great Society programs if we are going to get back on fiscal responsible track. I think we could run this government off of $3 or $4 trillion, not the $7 we're spending annually.
Alex Gaaserud is joining us in studio this morning, one of the Republicans running for the party's nomination for U.S. Senate. What was your take on the DHS funding bill that went through the Senate last night? Would you have supported it if you were in that chair?
Yes. Yeah, we need to fund DHS. I think it's absolutely, especially with the war in Iran right now, to have DHS not funded is a huge mistake in the United States right now. I would have been supporting that reconciliation package, and hopefully we can not have the Democrats continue to hold the government hostage, especially when it comes to the safety of our citizens. DHS needs to be funded. ICE needs to continue their mission in securing the border, securing the country, getting the bad guys out, and our intelligence services need to be able to operate at tip-top speed, and we're not able to do that when DHS isn't funded, and there's a lot of uncertainty around defending the homeland. So I was glad to see that.
Talk about the war in Iran right now and the way the administration is handling it. Are you pleased? What would you do differently?
Yeah, so I think that the actions taken in Iran were very necessary. Iran chanced death to America. They were going to continue to pursue nuclear weapons. They were going to continue to pursue their missile technology, where they would eventually be able to get a bomb. We've seen their willingness to hit their Arab neighbors. We've seen their willingness to hit Israel. We believe that they could even one day potentially reach Europe or the United States if we were allow them to continue their nuclear pursuits. I think that it was the right action to take. What's unfortunate about the Iranians right now is they've been mindlessly pursuing nuclear weapons while their water system is failed. They don't have access to clean water. They their currency has been debased, where the basic goods and services have broken down in their country. And the regime ultimately is changed. We've killed a lot of radical people, and I think we're going to continue to bomb them in submission. I don't believe that we're going to be able to end this war at the negotiation table. I think we're going to have to take clear military action, and I would prepare Americans now for boots on the ground. I know the administration's probably not being very forthright about what the real outcomes are going to be in this war, but I would prepare for boots on the ground. And I think that the Iranians, I plead for them to take their country over and to take their government over and no longer allow these radicals to control them. So I am in support of the Iran war, but I'm also not willing to butcher a generation of Americans to fight it. So we're going to continue to fight it with smart power. Fortunately, we have not lost a lot of Americans in this war. But it is very much a fluid matter, and the administration, I think, needs to be upfront with people and let them know this war is not going to be over in a couple weeks or a couple months. It's going to go on for a little while. It's just logistically impossible not to.
Talking to Alex Gaaserud, joining us in studio this morning, Republican for U.S. Senate. Artificial intelligence is going to be a major component of our economy moving forward. Two-part question for you. One, that also includes data center development. Where do you stand on development? Do we need to take a pause? Do we need to push it forward? And two, what's the federal government's role in regulating artificial intelligence moving forward?
So we definitely need to win the AI race. That's without a doubt. And I'm not necessarily opposed to data centers. I'm opposed to bringing data centers too quick to West Virginia and not knowing what the potential outcomes are going to be. You know, I look at Virginia, for instance, where their electricity rates over the last 5 years have increased 276% in areas where data centers are. I know West Virginians are strapped in a way right now with the lack of affordable energy that we have online in our country to where they're not going to be able to afford that. And I think that bringing a data center here and seeing how it goes is the right way to go, as opposed to the West Virginia legislature, who's historically one of the worst bodies in our nation's history and in our state's history, just trusting what they're going to say. I also think that we have an infrastructure problem in West Virginia where we're going to need new transformers. We're going to need new transmission lines. And I believe that the companies that are bringing these data centers here need to be completely 100% on the hook for facilitating the power that they need, the water that they need. And I want to see how one of these goes before we just put one in every corner of the state like the West Virginia legislature is doing right now. So I am cautious, but I am also realistic about the need for data centers because of where we're going in the 21st century with AI development and energy needs. So I definitely think that data centers have gone probably too quick, too fast, and I would like to see how things go. Are there water outcomes that are not good for residents and constituents? Do electricity rates spike and that consumers are saddled with that when they're already unable to pay their power bill anyway? What sort of environmental effects do we see from a data center? So I think we should see how one goes. And the other thing is, everybody thinks we're in this big race, and we are. But the demand for data centers isn't going anywhere. We're going to have a demand for data centers 20 years, 40 years, 60 years from now. Let's see what the outcome and the effects are and start a little slower than what they're trying to do, which is to dive in the deep end immediately.
If we move slower, how do we maintain an edge against China? They're putting these things on left and right week after week, and you talked about winning that race. So how do you balance the two?
Yeah, so I'm speaking West Virginia specific. So, I'd like to see West Virginia roll it out a little slower than what is currently the pace and the trajectory, and that's West Virginia specific. Now, other states and across the country, we can roll these out and that sort of thing, but I'm being more cautious for West Virginia because we're a sick old poor state, and we need to make sure that the outcomes are going to be beneficial with bringing data centers here. So I'm not in this full bore mode of just put a data center in immediately. We can compete with China on a national level by bringing data centers, but I don't want to see West Virginia, especially West Virginians, saddled with negative outcomes when we see other states and how they've rolled it out and some of the adverse consequences for their residents, particularly Northern Virginia, where rates for electricity have increased 276% in some areas.
Alex Gaaserud joining us, Republican running for U.S. Senate. Alex, why should Republicans support you on May 12th?
So I'm running to bring generational change to West Virginia. We need a new image in the state of West Virginia. We need to send a young, dynamic, energized conservative to Washington, D.C. to fight on the tough issues, to secure our border. Donald Trump will not be the president forever. We must secure our border and continue with that policy. I want to end the concept of asylum in U.S. law. I wouldn't have voted to bring 100,000 Afghans into the country with Operation Allies Welcome and Operation Enduring Welcome, which Senator Capito voted for. We need to have somebody that casts more conservative votes than liberal votes as a United States Senator, unlike what Senator Capito has done in her time there. And it's very difficult to look at the results of West Virginia and the results of this country and to say that Senator Capito deserves another 6 years. I don't believe in people staying in Washington, D.C. till they die or do they have to be wheeled out. And I think West Virginia, in its current demographic decline, its current population decline, has a real opportunity to send the next generation of fighter to Washington, D.C. from the state of West Virginia to fight for West Virginians like they've never been fought for before. I think I have an ability and a skill set to bring real change to this state in a dynamic way and to inspire a new generation of West Virginians. I also can relate to West Virginians because I haven't been in Washington, D.C. for 25 years. I know what it's like to stand in the grocery line and put something back. I know what it's like to grow up with a generation of West Virginians that are trying to flee this state with reckless abandonment and never return. I know what it's like to grow up with a generation of West Virginians that suffer from addiction. And we have to change our future in West Virginia. And it's time to pass this hard work off to a new generation to take a crack at the ball.
Alex Gaaserud, Republican running for United States Senate. The primary election comes up on May 12th. Early voting starts April 29th. Alex, thanks for stopping by, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks.